Hello YouTubers, DasGregor again. I've got another short story for you. This is outside, of course, of the one I'm currently writing. This will maybe be a two-parter, but I have the whole thing written, and I hope you enjoy it. It's called Guitar for Beginners. Ricky sat spellbound as the band played up on stage. He loved hearing the music as it wafted through the small English-style pub. He'd always wanted to play an instrument, and wished he had the talent to do so. However, growing up in a small family had its limitations, and there weren't funds for idle hippity-hoppity noise, as his father would say. Every penny had to be saved to put food on the table or make sure that the rent was paid. He had 3 younger brothers and 2 little sisters. He had to do everything he could to help the family out. Suddenly, he was whacked in the back of the head. It was Sam. "I don't pay you for sitting on your brains all day gawking at the talent. Get to clearing these tables and sweeping the floors, boy." Ricky jumped up and began clearing the table as quickly as he could. He couldn't afford to lose this job. His old man would beat him senseless if he lost another job. After he was done bussing the empty tables, he pulled out the broom from the back closet and began sweeping the floors lazily. His mind began to listen to the beat of the music, and his body began to respond to the melody swimming in the air. The King's Arms was a small, seedy pub deep in the heart of the city. Its owner, Sam, tried to make it as authentic as he could. However, since the death of his wife, it had fallen into hard times. Smoky and dark, its customers came and went, ordering a pint here and a Guinness there. Bangers and mash was the house specialty, and if the grease didn't kill you from the fish and chips, the dirty glassware would. It wasn't exactly the type of place you'd bring your ma to. The band up on stage finished their set and told the few who paid attention that they was about to take a break. They'd be back after a few pints. No one seemed to care, and Sam threw on the radio to drown out the groans and murmurs coming from the crowd drinking their yesterdays away. Hours passed before the call for last orders and were closing shop. The old, "You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here." A way to say, "Get out of here." The band began to pack up their instruments, and Ricky went up to them. "That was some good music you played up there." It was all he could do to stammer and not sound too silly. "What's that? You liked our music, kid?" The young hip guitar player slurred at Ricky. He was still trying to get his instrument packed away, and was having a hard time doing so. Sam walked up to the band and threw a small wad of cash at the musicians and said, "Here's your take, boys. Don't come back." He looked at Ricky and handed him a few bills. "Here's your salary, Ricky. Try to be on time tomorrow." Ricky took the cash and put it in his pocket. The guitar player was eyeing Ricky. He watched as Ricky put the money into his pocket. He then looked at the lad and said, "You could play as good as me if you was a-wantin' to," he slurred at Ricky. Ricky looked at him curiously. The musician was evidently drunk, and probably didn't know what it was he was talking about. "What you mean?" he asked. "Follow me, boy," said the guitar player. He led Ricky outside of the band's van and slid the door open. He scrounged round a bit inside and then pulled out an old guitar case. He opened it up and showed Ricky a vintage guitar. It had a few dings and scratches, but as little as Ricky knew about guitars, it looked like gold. "I could sell, give you away." His sentence trailed off. "I only got $20, stammered Ricky. "Well, what do you know? That's exactly what I was asking for this fine musical instrument." The seedy musician grabbed at Ricky's bills and shoved the guitar at him. Ricky wandered back into the pub with stars in his eyes. The rest of the band was just coming out of the King's Arms and heading towards the van. "What was that all about?" asked the drummer. "Aw, nothing, gents. I was just getting rid of that old guitar of mine. It's been nothing but trouble, always having strings break and never staying in tune." He spit on the ground. "I gave it to the chap for a fine price of $20. The rest of the band members laughed and jumped into the van. Away they drove. As Ricky walked into the pub, Sam stopped him. "I hope those boys didn't bother you none." "Oh, no. I bought this guitar from one of them, though," Ricky returned. "You dang fool. Your old man's gonna kill you when you get home. How you gonna explain that you gave your earnings for a worthless guitar? He's gonna blame me, I tell you. I don't want that on my head." Sam walked away, still mumbling, leaving Ricky to think about what he had just done. Ricky walked up to the stage and sat down in a chair. He looked at the empty pub and all the seats on top of the tables. He thought about how cool it would be to be playing for a packed house of people. He pulled out the old worn guitar from the moth-eaten case it was in and set it in his lap as he was about to play the best music he had ever heard. "Twang!" screeched the guitar as Ricky plucked at the strings. It wasn't even a proper note that spewed from that guitar. Just a noise that could have caused the meanest of cats to give up their perch on the old backyard fence. "You ain't gonna get anything good to come from that thing until you get some proper strings on that and get her tuned up," yelled Sam from the back of the kitchen. Afraid that Sam was right, Ricky put the instrument back in its case and yelled at Sam, "I'm going home! See you tomorrow!" He ran out the door before Sam could realize the floors hadn't been mopped, and ran as fast as he could to get home. When he arrived at the old two-room apartment, he quietly tiptoed into the flat. His old man was waiting for him. "What you got there, boy?" he said to Ricky. "It's a guitar," stammered Ricky, a little uneasy at answering his dad. "Where you be getting a guitar from, and with what moneys? Did you steal that thing, boy?" His dad raised his hand about to strike. "If there's one thing I can't stand, it's a thief, and I didn't raise no—" He trailed off as Ricky interrupted him. I didn't steal it, Dad. I bought it with my own money." Ricky regretted what he had said before he had ever finished the sentence. "Whose money, you say?" His dad started raising his voice to a shout. "I didn't think I heard you right, boy. If you're talking about the wages that feed this here family, then I don't think that's your money, boy." He raised his hand to strike Ricky. At this time, Ricky's mother came into the room. "What's all the shouting about, boys? Come to bed. It's too late in the night to be arguing about anything, and you'll be awakening all the little ones if you're not careful," she said. Ricky's father lowered his hand and walked into the other room, sullen and angry with his son. Ricky just stood there. He knew if he stayed, he'd never get to learn to play the guitar. He knew his dad would take it first thing to the pawn shop and get whatever he could from it. He turned on his heels, and without thinking any further, he ran out of the house. His mom cried out, but Ricky was already gone. He ran out of the flat and out into the street. He kept going as fast as he could, running with the guitar tucked under one arm. He didn't know where to go, so he went back to the King's Arms. Sam was just turning the lights off for the night when he heard Ricky come running up. Before Ricky could pound on the door, he opened it and let the youth in. "What's the problem, lad?" he asked the boy. "You were right, sir. My dad went bonkers when he saw the guitar. I just had to run away. I was afraid of what he might do to me. Please, sir, let me stay the night here." Ricky sobbed as he told Sam what had happened. "Okay, boy, you can stay here tonight. However, you had better finish the mopping you ran out on," Sam said to Ricky. "I want these floors spotless for tomorrow. Afterwards, you can sleep wherever you can find a spot." Ricky thanked Sam and went to get a mop. He was exhausted, but this was better than the beating he probably would have gotten at home, sleeping in the cold night air, or on a bench, or who knows what. The next morning, Sam found Ricky curled up in a ball in the corner of the pub. He picked the boy up and carried him upstairs to his second-floor flat. There he laid him on a couch and covered him with a blanket. He walked back downstairs to set up shop for the day. He'd let Ricky sleep. He'd been through a lot in the last 12 hours. Ricky dreamed and dreamed that morning. He dreamed that he was playing that old guitar, and that the music was flowing from it like honey to everyone who heard it. He dreamed that the guitar was calling him. When Sam got back downstairs, he was overjoyed to see the floors shine and sparkle. That boy could do a grand job when he put his mind to it. Sam glanced over at the guitar laying against the wall, where he had found Ricky sleeping. He looked at it and shook his head. That boy sure got took on that old piece of... He stopped short and crossed himself. Later that morning, Ricky woke up and stumbled downstairs. Sam was still setting up and getting ready to open the doors for the lunch crowd. "Well, it's about time you woke up, Sleeping Beauty. Go back upstairs and get yourself cleaned up. I'll not be having you stink up my clean establishment." Ricky started to protest, but then decided it is better to just comply. He went back upstairs and cleaned up the best he could. Well, there's the end of part 1, and we'll start working here on part 2 and get that uploaded and set up for you soon too. So I hope so far it sounds intriguing and that you're enjoying it.